Assalamu alaikum. Greetings, everyone. Welcome to the second part of the third installment of our Importance of the Muslim Family series, our Pre-Ramadan series. I am Ndola. Ayub was not going to be with us today. He had work to do, but I'll be here, and I'll be joined very soon by a very special guest. Sorry, we're talking about parenting. I got a lot of parenting happening with my eyes right now. So I'm gonna need y'all to excuse me, I gotta be quiet. Yes, parenting, the importance of the Muslim family and parenting. So we started off with oneself the very first week, and then we went into marriage, and now we're doing parenting. And then the last two themes, maybe please don't speak right here, right now. Do other stuff. The last two parts of this series is community and then legacy. And so as we've been doing on Mondays, we have our brothers on to discuss the topic. On Fridays, our sisters come on and discuss with us. And so today we have, oh, my mouse is not wanting to move. Oh, Lord. Okay, there it is. All right, today we have our sister Fatima Kokar. I'm gonna need y'all to forgive me. I got a lot going on right now. Fatima Kokar, so let me bring her up to the stream. There you are. I think you are on mute still.
There we go. Assalamu
alaikum. Fatima heard me backstage lovingly fussing at some children.
I love how 2020 brought about, just a new acceptance of parenting, because people had to parent virtually, in the middle of meetings and teaching classes. And so I think hopefully the world has gained a new patience and understanding with parenting,
Right. I'm like, yeah, so I need y'all to sit down. And then after that,
right? Exactly.
Like you got some kind of disorder or something, having to interrupt your sentence and get right back in. But okay, all right, so let me introduce you properly. So I have your bio here. All right, so this is Fatima Kokar. If you don't know, now you know. So Fatima is passionate about family life, stages of womanhood, and the spiritual nourishment of prayer. She believes in education as an aid to the evolutionary life of intentional service. This passion drives Fatima in her work, both as a seeker of knowledge and as an educator. Fatima is currently the assistant director of Hajj's House Global Learning Center, an Islamically sound Montessori-inspired program serving infants through third grade. She has over 15 years experience teaching Quran and Arabic to children and adults. She completed her post-secondary studies at the Abu Nur University in Damascus, Syria, where she specialized in the Arabic language and Islamic studies. She also holds an AMI primary, pre-K to K Montessori diploma, as well as a NAMC elementary, first to third Montessori diploma. She is also a passionate birth educator and trained doula. Fatima is married with 5 beautiful children, a cat, and currently 5 hens.
We started with 7.
Oh, wow, 5 hens, okay. She enjoys reading, traveling, being outdoors, good coffee, and quality time with family and friends. All right. So I knew most of that, but some of that I did not know you were a doula.
Oh, yes.
I knew you did birth work, but I didn't know you were officially a doula. That's what's up. That's dope.
Yeah. Well, it was interesting because I had never planned on being a doula. And but after my first birth with Maimuna, I had such an amazing experience having her at home. And I was really just so filled with that experience and excited to hear about other, mothers' experience. And so many of the women around me at that time did not have, the same experience. And it was really shocking to me. And I was really sad about it. And so it kind of fast forward a little bit when I met the midwife that I birthed Ayub with, my second born. She also did doula training, and I really appreciated her approach to birth. And I thought, okay, this is a way I can, advocate for my sisters to have more of a positive and beautiful, empowering birthing experience than what had been shared with me at the time. So
yeah,
but it didn't last long because I had little children, and I realized, not really going to work right now. So,
yeah.
but alhamdulillah, I did have the honor to attend some births. So.
Yeah, that's amazing. My first birth was not ideal. It was very long and very interfered with, and I was very scared, and I did all the stuff that wasn't on my birth plan I didn't want to do, and I felt very like I didn't have choices or options, like very just kind of like And then I learned a few things, and the second one was a little better, but she was precocious, so it was 45 minutes start to finish, so that one was a nightmare. That third one, I got the doula and the water birth and the stuff, and I was like, oh, this is so amazing. Kind of like what your first was. That third one did it for me.
Yeah. My third was the opposite. I was like, yeah, I'm done. And then I still had 2 more, mashallah.
Right. I was like, this is really what it should be like. Like, yes, it was painful, it's labor, it's work, but it was a beautiful experience. And I labored and I moved and I was able to eat stuff and drink and talk and until I couldn't, But anyway, that's I guess the beginning of our topic for the night. But the parenting part, it's interesting because when I think about my children, their personality is so much like their labor experience. Like the first one loves attention and she's such an extrovert and she's just like on and entertaining. And I used to describe her labor as like a circus. Like it was almost 2 days long. It was so many people there. It was just all this stuff going on. And I was like, this is insane. No one should have to come into the world like this. And she came like, like I'm ready. And then that second one, that 45 minutes is not an exaggeration. The same show that was on when I started laboring was on when she was born. And it was The Price is Right. I remember I was watching The Price is Right, guessing prices. And the next thing I knew, I couldn't talk. And the next thing I knew, I was like, I think I want to push. And she doesn't wait for anybody. When she's ready for something, she's doing it. She's gonna, she'll ask once and then she's moving forward. Yeah. And then the third one was very, just kind of easy. Like the labor was 6 hours, which I think for labor is almost like an ideal time.
Yeah, that's still, yeah.
It was very
that's not considered long.
Very progressive. It kept moving forward. I squatted, I moved, I did this, that, and the other. And she's just that kid. Like she's just kind of chill and she kind of moves along. And I remember thinking about how different they were. And I remember when I linked it to the labor thing, but I was like, oh, the way that I had to treat each of those labors very differently, I'm going to have to parent them differently. Like there's this desire because they're girls to do a thing. And this is what we do because I have all girls, so we can do this thing. Where I was like, no, they're so cool.
I think that's such an important, just such an important reminder to take into parenting, period. So I'm just going to say, A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajeem, bismillahir rahmanir rahim, wassalatu wassalamu ala sayyidina Muhammad. And thank you for having me today, alhamdulillah. I think you segued into it so nicely, just that those reminders that Allah gives us that each of our children are different. And not only are each of our children different, but as you become a parent, you're different with every child as well. And that's both mother and father, right? You're in different places in your life. You're at different places in your relationships. You're in different places with your Lord, and all those things play a factor into the energy that is surrounding that new life as they're, growing in the womb to when they come into the world, literally that day,
right.
The environment in the home, that they're coming into. And so, that's just a really important thing to remember, that each of your children are different and each of them will need different things. And so to be careful not to lump them all into doing the same thing or having the same expectation of them. Because also what happens too is that we put the same expectation on each child, and then that child who really isn't built that way, starts to feel like, I'm a failure, I'm this, I'm that, because, their differences, their unique qualities, and their unique needs were just never, recognized. SubhanAllah. So.
Yeah, that was one of the pieces of advice that was given to me. I feel like, I don't know if I was pregnant with Aziza yet or newly married, and one of the community mothers of the West End said a lot of times her daughters thought that she was kind of being unfair from one to the other. And it wasn't until they got older and she was able to really explain to them the real differences. And so, for example, talks through her thoughts. She talks through things to process. And so it can look like talking back to the untrained eye. Right. The other one is very quiet. So when she starts talking, she is talking back. But when she's being quiet, she's taking a moment to process. And the one that talks a lot, when she's quiet, she might be being disrespectful, like, I'm just gonna, whatever.
Right, she's purposely.
Right.
So, right.
You're not paying attention to their personality and the ways that she was in tune with her children. It could look like chaos. Like, oh, this one is popping off at the mouth and this one is ignoring her. But she knew her children and she knew what they needed to do, what needed to be done. And I was like, that's such a good example, because the talking and then the silence are two very striking things that you can really pay attention to.
Yeah, definitely.
And so I kept that in mind as I had mine, and mine don't really have that kind of difference. Like, they all talk.
But I think that's a really powerful point too that you're making. Just that, we seek our guidance from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and staying so connected to that, because on the outside, it's always going to look like something else to somebody else, right? Yes. And so knowing that your parenting, what guides you in your parenting, has to come from a deeper place than what other people say or think, right? And so really, as your parent, before you're coming into parenting and as you're going through parenting, the power of calling on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala just never goes away. You need that every stage of the way. And to trust that when you call out to Allah, seeking that guidance for this child, that child, calling by name because they're different, right? Or for you, what you need at that time, that guidance, to really call out that expectation that Allah will give it to you. And that's not to say don't seek out counsel, for sure. You should definitely seek out counsel. And like you said, if you see a good example, you want to know more, right? But at the end of the day, knowing, and I even tell my children sometimes that, it's my turn and I'm going to do the best I can because I'm accountable to Allah. So help me out, but also too, like, you have to let me be responsible, and you'll have a turn where you will get to make all the decisions. You will be able to say what you want to happen and not to happen. And it's not as easy as you think, but right now it's my turn to face Allah with that. So I got to do what Allah is telling me to do, not necessarily what you want me to do. Right. So I think both of those are really important. Each child is different. Also, we can seek advice, but at the end of the day, you really have to have your guidance come from a deeper place. And that's with what Allah and his messenger are showing you. So you have to seek some knowledge, right? You can't do it in a vacuum. You have to seek some knowledge in parenting and in being a parent, because, advice and guidance, it helps.
Yeah. I was thinking recently about some advice that you actually gave me. I don't even know if you realized you were giving it, but when we were pregnant together with my last, your third, I think.
Okay.
And I was kind of trying to figure out how to juggle everything I had been juggling. And I don't remember the questions you asked me, but at the end of it, you kind of made a face and I was like, let me have it. Like, what? And you were like, all of the stuff your husband started doing to help you through the pregnancy, let him have it. Let him keep doing that. And I was like, wait a minute. You were like, the grocery shopping or the waking the girls up for school or whatever, let him do that part of the parenting in the household and you focus on this. And I was like, why didn't I think of that? It's such a simple thing. Like, doing it, let him do it. And he has to parent these two a little more because he can't do much for this new baby that I intend to nurse and we're going to co-sleep and all this stuff that I intended to do. He can't do anything but me moral support and maybe change a diaper here and there, but he has to go to work still. So do I really want to wake him up throughout the night to sit with me while I nurse and change her diaper? Probably not.
Right.
But he can get up with these other two and make sure they get breakfast and finish their homework and whatever. And I don't know, it was such a big like
right. Well, sometimes it's, sometimes we overcomplicate.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And I think what's really important too, for us as, moms and dads to remain flexible. I think it's so important, especially in the time we're living in right now. The family or communal living that used to happen is not there. So most likely it's that nuclear family. It's mom and dad and the children. And so where, I've lived in other places where, there were multiple families living together. Mm-hmm. And so the women took turns helping one another. Mm-hmm. Or things were done in a communal fashion where everybody was watching the children and different things like that. But that's not really our reality for most of us on this side of the ocean, right? And so we all kind of have to shift and be a little more open-minded and flexible about what the stages of parenthood are going to look like between mom and dad, how we're going to support one another, not get really stuck in these rigid roles that, alhamdulillah, as Muslims, we don't have defined these rigid roles of, a dad can't wake the children up and get them ready for school. Alhamdulillah, And so I think just having that flexibility of knowing that it's not going to be so linear is really, really important as you go into, especially once you have the next child and the next child, those things will change. And so being flexible on both ends, that we as moms don't say, well, I have to do this and I have to do it all, or it's not going to be done right. So that's kind of the other part of it when you're sharing this role, which we all are, of parenting in some sort of fashion, right? That doesn't mean your way.
Yes.
Right. And so really staying in communication as parents together, even if the children are between two, households, having some of those shared values across the board, even though there are going to be things that are different between mom and dad, whether it's two separate homes or even within the same home.
Yeah.
Two people don't parent exactly the same way. And children are flexible. They're flexible enough too to know what's going to fly with dad, that's not going to fly with mom, and vice versa. And and I always tell my children, like, you have, as you get older and you start your own journey, look, you have a plethora of ways to do it. But right now, you're going to do it the way I said, so it's good. It's good. Alhamdulillah. So.
That's so funny that, like, I've told my children a very similar thing, but I wasn't quite as articulate. I think I said something like, look, at the end of the day, if all else fails, I'm being selfish. I have to be accountable for what I do and what I don't do. And so I'm worried about my soul. Okay. Is that? None of my other reasons are sufficient for you. It doesn't really matter. I'm not doing it for you to understand. You're 10 or you're 8 or you're whatever. I have to answer to Allah for this, for everything that I do. And I would rather not have to answer for avoidable things. Like some stuff I really, really know better and I can do better. I don't want to answer for not doing that stuff,
Right. And it changes throughout the different stages. So, I always share and reflect myself upon Ali radiallahu anhu, who gave us the wisdom of approaching parenting in these sets of 7. And so, advice to
my favorite thing
for the first 7 years to really play with your child. And in some of the translations, it says, that the child is the master. And what is meant by that is that, that fitra is really guiding that child. They're fresh, here. And, they are on this mission to establish themselves, to learn the ways of human beings, right? And start figuring out this interaction with this place called Earth, right? And so there's a lot of things that they're going to be attracted to and do. And we have to be careful that we are not constantly thwarting them away from what is guiding them, to come and discover and find out. And so those first 7 years, their play is their worship.
Yeah.
Right? That is what they should be doing, exploring the world, getting dirty and messy and
it's amazing
with beautiful language and expressive language and being loved, just loved on so much. And of course, love on them all throughout the stages, right?
Right.
But
it's different.
No question of, do my parents love me?
Right.
And so even we know that the Prophet ﷺ, was very affectionate and encouraged the believers to be affectionate, men and women, with their children, to kiss them and just be really affectionate with them. The other part of that, I'll just say about those first 7 years is, letting them get messy. Sometimes we want our children to look pristine so their clothes stay nice, or, because maybe we don't like mess, right? And when I say messy, I mean be able to touch the earth, to really be able to connect with the earth. Our bodies are attracted to what they're made from, right? Just like our souls are constantly seeking to connect to our source, to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So letting our children, play outside and take their shoes off every once in a while and play in the mud and go out in the rain and climb some trees, taste some grass, they're going to do it.
They're going to do it, yeah.
What'd you say?
So yeah, they are going to do it.
They are going to do it, and not assuming that everything they're doing is to drive you crazy or to, test the limits of their their life, right? But that there's something that they're seeking to find, and that's connection, and that's belonging, right? We want every child, is entitled to that inheritance, that this is my earth that I am a caretaker of, and to really love this place where they are, in a sense of the beauty, right? The diversity, the life that's here, so that when they then grow up and take ownership of being those stewards, they have this true, well-founded connection to it. And so we could talk more and more about that, but just, those 7 years, their play is their worship. And so we want them to explore. And when we think about that Adamic nature, well, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that he taught Adam the names of things. Right. And so the child has this thirst for what? Yep. What is this? What, mama? What, baba? And so we're giving them the names of things, right? We have to call each other by beautiful names. That's the right of children in Islam, that we name them with beautiful names. And so in return, we continue to give them the names, not this or that thing over there, but we teach them that things have names, creatures have names, people have names. And so really building that beautiful language, and not only just through the language, but through that experience. Again, what is it? Well, how do I know it? I touch it.
Yeah.
I taste it. I smell it. Right. And so, of course, we're going to keep them safe, but I just mean really feeding that sense of curiosity of what is it, that our children are born with, really empowering that in those first 7 years, and showing them the way it should be done, right? They're like a sponge at that age, and they don't know right from wrong. They just know what you present to them. And so you can present wrong to them as right, and vice versa. They don't know yet. And you're the people that they trust.
Yep.
Right. And so sometimes we right now, and it's a reaction to an extreme, right? We want our children, their voices now to be heard, right? No longer are we parenting with this fear-based parenting, do what I say, not what I do, right? And children shouldn't be heard in this and that. Like we've put that aside for most of us, right?
Yeah.
But in doing that, we want to make sure that we're also helping our children develop in a healthy, holistic way. And so sometimes we all get into it. We're all guilty of it. We over-explain at this stage because we want them to understand, and really they're not ready for that deeper understanding yet. Not that they won't comprehend what you're saying. Many of them will.
Right.
but this is a chance to show them the ideal of everything. This is how we wash our hands. This is how we blow our nose.
That simplicity.
How we, use a fork. This is how we clean up your room. This is the chance to show. This is how we greet our neighbor when we see them. This is, we can go on and on, right?
Yeah.
Respond when we sneeze.
Yep.
Alhamdulillah, or we say for that person, Yarhamakallah. And so it's just really a time for them to learn the beauty of being a human being, because we teach them the ideal, right? And we introduce them to the ideal as much as possible, right? And how ideally to deal with those conflicts that come up.
Yeah.
Right? This is what you can do when someone does something you don't like, right? And give them those tools that as they start navigating a little further away from you, they have the words, they have the actions, and they trust you. They'll take them, they'll use them, and they'll see how they are playing out in the world, right? And so then in the next 7 years, he advises that we now we teach them discipline. So now it's time to embrace the will. Now their will is fully formed. They know, oh, I'm not mom, I'm not dad. I can do things.
Yep.
And they may or may not know, right? They're coming into all of this awareness. And so what does the Prophet ﷺ say? He says, call them to prayer. Right? And Salat is all about discipline.
Yeah.
It has set times. It has set movements. It has set words. It's a ritual. It is something that is passed down in a certain way, and you're preserving that ritual. And so sometimes, when our children turn 7, we're like, oh, they're so little, maybe I won't wake them for Fajr, or they can go to bed before Isha, right? But when we think about this stage of discipline, of now I can will myself to do things, I can will myself to not do things.
Yep.
Really knowing their potential as a human being in that way, subhanAllah, they get introduced to this new stage now at 7. And again, it's falling in line with what's already happening. Their ability now to tell you why, right? Now the back and forth really begins. They have a reason for everything.
I got a 7-year-old over here, so
it's not so much what.
Yeah.
Right? Now they want to know, well, why? Why? How come? Why I got to do that? Right. Well, why didn't, Fatu have to do that? And all of this now. And we see it, as, oh, they're being rude. Some of it is, for sure, right? But where is it coming from? Again, if we trust that there's a fitrah that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put in all of us, and we're going to seek, okay, what's going on, right? And one thing that I really love in Montessori, part of that training is really focused on what's happening on the inner life of the child, so that we as the adults can help be a guide to what's already inside of them, right? Allah said that He established the fitrah, nature. And He said, La tabdila, don't change it or rearrange it, right? And so when we look at, okay, all these children around this age are now talking back and asking me why all the time, some phenomena must be going on. What's happening, right? And so now they're trying to understand and reason, because now they don't have this inner drive that's just driving them to go do stuff. Now they need a reason. They're like, am I going to do that? Am I not going to do that? It's like, oh, okay, subhanAllah, okay, let's talk about this, right? And so now we can introduce, well, tell me all the wrong ways. If I come and say, yo, Indola, and that's how I get your attention, or instead of, excuse me, mommy, right? Well, I saw Peter over there, he calls his mom by his first name. Okay, well, let's talk about that. So now we want to talk about the why. How did things end up the way they did? Why is it in our family we say, excuse me, or whatever it is? The why now is there. And so we want to, again, as they're coming into this stage of discipline, continue to give them the whys. They want to know about why are things the way they are right now, and not kind of shy away from that question with the constant response of, because I said so. There is a proper, because I said so is not inappropriate. There are times where it is because I said so.
Yeah, that's the answer.
Trust me and come ask me about it when you've completed what I said, right? That was one thing I used with my older two, and I'm using again now. I do want you to feel respected. I do too. And I want you to trust me, right? So go do what I said. And when you're done, you can come and ask me, or, they want to change the subject or whatever. I want to hear what you have to say. Let's wait until the right time.
After you've done what I told you.
And so now my 7-year-old, she'll catch herself. Let me go do what you said first. I'll be right back. And sometimes too, they're very sensitive in this second stage, to what they feel is fair and unfair. Very sensitive to that. So if they feel you have been unjust, they're just like, the world is not right. I need to tell everybody about it, or they're brewing inside, because that sensitivity to this social order now is very acute, right? And so I would tell them, if it's still bothering you, the way I spoke to you or what I told you to do, after you've done it, then come back and let's talk about it. And every once in a while, they would, or they do, right? And sometimes it's gone. Either maybe they understood why I said it, or they realized it wasn't that big of a deal. But I tried to be sincere in opening up that door. If I do something that you really feel was not right, or it left you with a feeling that's still lingering, I want to know, right? And so I think that's really important in that stage to start opening up that open line of communication. It was, I think, either their 8th or 9th birthday where they had the birds and bees talk, and so for their birthday, Dad and I would take them. And it was just like one of these things where they're gonna start hearing about it from their peers, right? And again, they're in this stage where they want to understand things, and let's just get it out there.
Let's talk about it.
Not all the details and this and that, but just enough that they knew. And hey, you might hear some stuff from your friends, and you can always come home and let's talk about it and check your facts, and you can maybe go share it with them, whatever it is, right? So really building up their willpower to empower them that you can be an agent of change, of good, of goal, reaching your goals and achieving different things. Like, you are fully capable of that. And learning the order and discipline that it takes to do that. Just like you wake up for Fajr, you end your day with Isha, you get those prayers. And then, in the beginning, they may need to pray Isha a little earlier. Fajr may be right when they wake up. There's some wiggle room in there, right? But by the time they're 10, the Prophet said they should be getting up. There is no wiggle room, right? They should be, and it's a good measure, as they're turning 10, you can really measure just by their salat. What is their discipline like?
Yeah.
It's, and so we have a few more years before the next 7 we need to tighten this up, right? And as they come into that next 7, our leader, who advised to become more like their advisor, right? So now you're bringing them into that shura, counselor mode, right? And many of us, if you've been to camp, you've been a counselor, you realize that you couldn't just direct campers. You'd be the counselor everybody's trying to get away from, right? You had to befriend them. You had to then take a different angle of respecting that they're about to come into taklif. They're coming into their own stage of accountability with God. And so I have to shift. I cannot continue to direct them, right? And so now their question is not so much what or why. Their question now is, well, what do I think about that? What am I going to do about that? What does my voice say to me? And so really helping them clarify their own voice, and so
crazy. I'm just saying it's amazing how it's laid out that way. And I have a 7-year-old, a 10-year-old, and a 13-year-old, and I know everything that you're saying in them. And it's not like I said to them, at this age, this should happen. Right. But 13-year-old, the shift from 3 years ago is unbelievable. And I can see exactly what you're saying because, with her being my oldest, I don't have one in that last 7 years yet. But she'll be there soon, inshallah. And so it's like, yeah, it is. What do I think about this? And what is my voice? And it's not disrespectful.
Right.
It's genuine. And when it is a little bit disrespectful, she knows it and I know it. And we can just put it out there like,
they still need guidance. They still need guidance.
Okay, we're not going to do that. And she'll be like, like, okay, yeah.
But inshallah, the goal is that as they're coming into that stage, there's trust.
Yeah.
And that's something that we really want to hold on to with our children, that they trust us, that we're trustworthy.
Yeah.
And that again is most importantly what do I believe Allah wants me to do with these children, right? Because just to be over them, how am I preparing them for their adulthood?
Right. For
you want them to live with you for their, I don't think so, right? So
right.
And so when we know the goal is for them to stand tall,
mm-hmm.
In their belief and their connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, with the Prophet as their guide, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, with the world as their oyster, that takes cultivation of us being able to know when to step back, and help empower their voice. And I think it's so important that we know that the beginning, middle school, they're so sensitive. They're
mm-hmm.
so sensitive, and it's very a time where they're really figuring inwardly what is going on, and it can be very tumultuous. And I remember telling my niece, it will get better, like this is normal. You have to tell them it's normal.
All the time.
Right before puberty and, in the very beginning of puberty, it's a lot going on, and you're going to cry one day and you're going to be angry the next day. And I think we have to normalize that for our children, that there's a lot going on that you're processing and that you're being inundated with hormonally, not to mention outwardly from, your friends and your family. You're just really sensitive, and that's okay. And it won't always be like this. You will start to feel more weird.
I remember I sat some of my, when I realized my oldest needed, some of these more intimate talks. Some of her class, I had my school at the time. And some of her classmate parents were like, "Oh, you're going to do it with Zeke? And, put mine in there." And I was like,
we send everybody.
Right, I was doing that. And of course I did it. But one of the things that I did was I pulled one of the high school science books that had the actual charting of the hormones coming into puberty. And I showed them, like, okay, look, up until this time, these hormone levels might be here. And then as you're coming into puberty, they're like this. That's hard for anybody.
Right.
You guys are. Y'all are climbing now. This is difficult. So, a lot of this is very normal. You have to figure out how to maintain yourself in the midst of that. And still be respectful and still be mindful and still be kind. And, there are certain things you have to do no matter what. And
learn how to listen to yourself.
You got to do it. I will tell my girls, when you're in a space that's that intense, you need to remove yourself. You can tell me just straight, honestly, Mommy, I really need some time to just go and it can't be when you don't want to do what I said do. It can't be.
There's has to be some sincerity there. Yeah, but believe it or not, the boys are just as sensitive. And this time,
Lord! So I didn't know
that. Sensitive as well.
I didn't know that until I taught them. So I started with elementary, and as I expanded, as my students grew older, I expanded into the next grades up. And every single boy that I had in that 6th to 8th grade group, I was like, SubhanAllah, your poor parents. I didn't know boys went through this because I've only seen my brother, but we were a year and a half apart. So we were going through our stuff together. So I didn't see it.
Right.
I said, Lord have mercy, these boys, these poor boys, and they don't get the same space that girls get.
Right, they don't get it.
They don't get that same space. And so when I did it with the girls, I felt like it went really well. So then I talked to my boy dads, the moms and dads, did this thing with the girls. How you feel about me doing this thing with the boys? And everybody was like, yes, please. We don't want to do it. I was like, no, y'all still have to do it. You're holding me. but they do need to know that a lot of this is normal.
Right.
And to have the space to feel, because one of the things I noticed with the boys, they instead of feeling the range of emotions, they got angry.
Right.
And they would kind of lash out and want to fight, or they would end up crying and want to fight. And I was like, do I have any male students that haven't cried? These poor boys. But yeah, I think that it's a blessing having only girls for me. And it's given me an opportunity to kind of focus in on the girl thing. But I'm glad that I've seen the boy thing, because I know I'm gonna have to guide them through boys. You know, like that's we're there now. And with that communication and that trust part, my daughters were being very secretive. Not in a crazy way, but they were just being very quiet. Like, I know y'all got stuff on your mind. And they were like, well, it's just weird to talk to you. And I said, well, let's email. So I created an email. And
okay.
Anything you say in there stays there. I won't read an email and then call you to come and talk about it. Of course, if I'm concerned about your safety or your health, yes, I will. But if it's just something that you're feeling, something you're going through, you need to just vent. Free space. Don't cuss at me.
That's nice.
You can say whatever you want to say here. And the oldest one was kind of like, okay. I think that she didn't believe that it would be I call it a no consequence.
Right.
If you say something here, there's no consequence in terms of like, if you're just really, really upset and you're just kind of being off, do it. The middle one, subhanAllah, she is taking advantage of that thing. She emails me all the time. I mean, it could just be random thoughts. It can be, she just wasn't feeling so good today. And I was in class, I was having a hard time focusing. I mean, just really anything. And I was like, well, this is, she's getting accustomed to this communication that I hope that she would have when things get real. Like right now it's real low risk. She's 10.
Right.
Only so much because of the type of life that we live and the insulation we have from the world and the way that we deal with them. Certain things are going to not be issues for us. Alhamdulillah, not going to be an issue for us, right? But as she gets older, life is going to come in more and more. And it's like, I want her to know that she can talk to me literally about anything. I was like, there's no topic that is off limits. And one time she hit me up like, I just really feel stressed. And I was like, stressed? My first thought was, what? Some stress, girl. And then I said, don't do that. If she said that she thinks she's stressed, she might. And then I'm like, but wait a minute, we're in a pandemic. Of course she feels stressed.
Right. Yeah. Stress is good for everybody.
Yeah. For everybody. And so I was like, well, I really don't know how to help you with this for real. But I do know that it's normal to feel stressed. And let's just do more of the stuff we do. That going back to what we did in them first 7 years. It's raining. Go run around outside. Go dig up the yard. Our space is very lived in. There's paint on my dining room table and my floor. There's holes in the backyard. There are no flowers on any bushes because they thought they were honeysuckles.
Oh, mashallah.
When we get older, we can have nicer things.
Right. And I think that's important to remember. There's a time and space for everything.
Yeah.
And so, like, even the level of, I don't want to say cleanliness, because cleanliness is across the board, right? But how neat your house is going to shift.
Yes.
That's conditional. If you are making space for your children for it to be their home as well.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's one thing for your children to feel like, well, you're a guest in my space. Mm-hmm. So you can only sit on this couch like this, and don't touch that and this and that. Or this is our home. We take care of it. We enjoy it. You will learn how to do many things in this home, like cook and clean and know how to clean well. And you'll learn how to fold laundry and take care of a home and play games and build forts and, have dance parties. And all the memories that they'll take with them probably won't be that the house wasn't like so-and-so's house where they never got to play and they always wanted to come to my house. Right. Right. And so just, again, just flexibility, I cannot stress it enough. And not only because it's going to help us keep our sanity. But our children need they have to learn flexibility as well. And I think that what we're dealing with right now, the pandemic, is such a great reminder that we all have to be flexible. I think often of my nieces and nephews who are schooling virtually this year and how hard that must be. And I remember talking to some of the teenagers and they were just saying, till October I was going strong. And then it was like, oh my God, I can't keep doing this, but they still did. They made it through first semester. They're in second semester now, that's a lot. The children who are in schools and in masks all day, and so we're asking for a lot of flexibility from them. And we still want them to be joyful and thrive and, learn and, and be pleasant and respectful and kind. And so that flexibility that we're all needing right now, we have to remember, am I modeling that? Am I showing that? Am I offering that? Because they need that. They need that from us, but they also need to learn that as well. Things are not always going to go as planned or as you want, and it's okay.
Yes, it's okay. I know that the whole learning the stages of parenting has been like an absolute game changer for us and our parenting. And it's something that we talk to the girls about. Like, you're here, and then you're going to be here, and you're here. And it's funny because the older ones will tell the younger ones, like, you about to be this age, you're going to come. You're about to be in the discipline years, or I'm about to be in the advising years. Like, it's like a whole thing that we talk about.
Cute.
It's really nice.
But that knowledge is so helpful.
Yeah.
It empowers them too.
I think that was the thing, because they had to have felt the shift because I'm all about the play for the little ones. Like, even when I had my school, I'm not Montessori trained, but anybody who knew anything about Montessori that saw me was like, oh, this is a Montessori program. And I'm like, is it now? But it just was more, my position was, it was mothering inspired. Like, if these are my children, and they are, how would I want them to learn? I would want them to be able to flip around the classroom and to do blocks and color and whatever the stuff may be, all the life skills stuff and the taking care of themselves or whatever it is that they were doing. And there's a lot of play and the learning through play. And then it's like, all of a sudden, it's like, well, wait a minute, this needs to happen and this needs to happen. But I don't feel like it's all of a sudden. I know that I kind of phase it in, but to them, it's like, well, this time I was able to do that, and then now it's this. And so now the older ones chime in like, oh, Southside, you're in the discipline years. The discipline years are not like the play years. Now you have to do this. And even the prayer, when they were smaller, I was really big on don't force them to do things they don't have to do. So for example, when we're making salat, if one of them climbed on my head at 2 or 3, I would really let them be there. And people are like, you need to tell them. I'm like, but that's not really the example that was set for us. The example was to stay in sajda until they move. And so, and then there's a firm time limit on this. An 8-year-old can't climb on my head.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Even my 5-year-old, I would say, you can sit still while we mix a lot. But my 2, my 3-year-old, my 2-year-old,
kind of get them prepared. Like you've already been there.
You've done it.
You know what's coming up, right? Yeah. So you're going to constantly be thinking about. And so that's the other thing about parenting. Like, you do have to sit and think about it.
Yeah.
Like, you can't wing it the whole way through, and expect, these really polished results. It's not going to happen, right? Even when you're intentional and planning, it's still not going to go the way you expect it, but you're prepared.
Yeah.
Right. And so really thinking about spending time, you and dad and mom, or maybe you're parenting with a grandparent. Maybe you're parenting alone. Maybe your support circle are some of your closest friends. Whoever's in that circle of parenting with you, it's good to talk about it, right? What's coming up? What's going on with so-and-so? Where are we directing them right now, right? Not like what we're telling them to do, but where do we see, their honesty? Okay, how can we cultivate some more honesty for this one, right? Or this one is getting a little lazy with their work. What might be under that? Let's talk to them. Let's check in with the teacher as well. What's happening at school? What kind of motivation are they needing? Are they needing a reminder of their capability and responsibility, or are they needing a tutor? Like, what's happening, right? And so not just guessing our way through. It takes time. It takes planning. You know, there's just so many so many options, you know, with parenting, of ways that it can go. And so really not just leaving it everything to chance. You have to be able to flow with things, for sure. But, you know, if you know that they're upon 7, you want to start talking to them before their 7th birthday. Mm-hmm. And I think it's really important that as they're getting older, they're seeing that with responsibility, not just the weight of that.
Yes.
Right? Because sometimes we talk to our children, we're like, well, now you're turning this age, and so, you know, that means you can't. I'm supposed to be excited on my birthday, you know. And so that what responsibility means is that your ability to be trusted with more is increasing, which means your freedoms and your opportunities are going to increase. Because now you're not going to need me to remind you that it's Fajr time, right? You got that. We can move on to something else now, you know? And even talking to them about that. What do you think is your next level?
Yeah.
And I know you had mentioned previously a little bit about like technology and things like that. And I just wanted to, I don't know what time it is, but
it's 8:55. I actually was going to segue us into that, because I said I know the stages was one thing I really wanted to discuss, and then the technology thing. Like, that's the two biggest things I think that's not talked about enough, and super important and useful.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, technology is a part of our world.
Yeah.
Right. So we're not trying to run from anything.
Right. It's not
and we're on a computer right now. Most of our children right now are on computers for school.
Are quiet, so I'm sure they're on a device.
Right. And so again, just going back to those stages, what's happening, right? And I think it's really interesting that when you hear from a lot of technology leaders, Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, there's a guy now from Facebook who's been talking about his parenting, and they didn't let devices in their homes for their children when they were younger. And again, they understood, because they were, you know, creating a lot of this technology and how we interface with it as human beings, and what are some of the brain things that are happening and the addictive nature of certain things. And so they didn't allow them in their homes. And I think that's something that we need to pause and just reflect upon. Well, okay. And what again, as Muslims, we know that first stage, right, that to keep them, to really protect that fitrah, and that fitrah is about grounding themselves here in time and space with you, parents, family, learning how to walk and talk and express themselves and all of that. And we know that TV, a lot of those things is designed to, you take me in, take me in, take me in. Not a lot of output going on, right? And so just being really mindful that what's happening in the brain at this time, that's really an interruption to that. And so being really mindful of how much we allow screen time of any style, TV, phone, tablet, whatever, into those foundational developmental years, right? Where their perspective is being shaped, their personality is being shaped for the rest of their life, right? And so just seeking to be as natural as possible in that way. Then they get a little older, and now again that will is ready to start having more. Well, it's going to start taking over more of that driver's seat of why they're doing things or not doing things, right? And so being really mindful of how we introduce technology. It is a tool. It is a tool that we use.
Yeah.
It doesn't use us.
Yeah.
Right. And so making sure that when we're introducing these things to our children, we're putting them in the driver's seat. My daughter, my eldest, at that time, Disney Channel was all the rage, right? Disney and Nick and Nickelodeon or Nick Jr., whatever it's called, both, I guess. And so, certain channels were just out of the question. Nickelodeon, forget it. Disney, forget it. And so as she got older, this is in the second stage, right? She wanted to watch certain shows. And I said, okay, well, you're pretty clear on, your father and I, how we feel about certain things. And I would sit and watch certain shows with them to talk about, what do you think about the parent-child relationship? How are they speaking to the adults? Why do you think they made that a funny scene? I mean, we would literally go through these things. So they were real clear about what we're talking about, right? And so she wanted to watch, I don't remember the show. And I said, okay, well, write to me, persuade me. The expectations, and orientation that you're being raised with.
You're so much like me.
So she wrote me this essay about why she should be able to watch it, what the show was about, what things that she presented what I might say in her counter argument. And so, like I said, we watched the first few episodes together. And that was I think it ended up being like 2 shows on Disney Channel that they ever watched. But that was kind of how, when you want more, show me your level of responsibility. Yeah. Share with me. And so, especially as I came into that third stage, that 13, 14, I would remind them, and I have 2 still in that stage, right? You have to be willing to talk and communicate.
Yeah.
Because if you don't share what's going on, or how, you have to be willing to, how are you thinking? If you're not willing to share your thinking, then our trust can't grow.
Yep.
If the trust can't grow, there's not much more you can do. So you're going to ask me for more privileges or this or that, but you're not willing to talk about it from your perspective. What do you think? And so, like, even with books nowadays, they have to send me the Common Sense Media Review, and then we have to talk about it. If I see, okay, Common Sense Media, is a site I would recommend to parents. Definitely download the app, have your children, if they have smartphones, which we'll talk about in just a second, but have them look that up. What do parents say about it? What are other children saying about it? What are some of the themes that are going to come up in this book? Let's talk about it. Especially now, they're after Shaitan is after all of us, but especially our children are more susceptible.
Yeah.
Right? And the definition of things is trying to be redefined. And so you just got to be really mindful and help them be aware of what they're encountering, and not try to protect them from it forever.
Right.
As they get closer and closer to being on their own, they need the tools to deal with it.
Yep.
Not run because, oh my God, I'm not, that's not going to help them.
Yeah.
So, and like with the smartphones, each family's going to make that call, but just, there's a movement now, actually, no smartphone until 15. I can't remember the exact name, but like they have a petition going around, like just asking parents to consider waiting until 15. And mostly because what they're finding is that those middle school years, our children are so sensitive, and they're being inundated with nonstop feedback of ratings, likes, dislikes, comments, this and that. And our children emotionally are spiraling.
Yeah.
They're on more medicine. They're committing suicide. They're hurting themselves. There's a lot going on. And a lot of it is not being caught at this stage where they're so sensitive, and now there's never a time to just be. Right? And we all know the phones are designed to be addictive. Right?
Yeah.
So my daughter, she was, 15. She did have her smartphone. And so maybe she was 14. I can't remember now. But between 14 and 15. And we started, I think it was called smartphone training. And it was more so like, we're going to check in once a week. At that time, it was once a week. How's your heart feeling? How much time are you spending? How many selfies have you taken? Right. And so we even talked in the beginning about what's a limit of how many selfies you're going to have. I know that sounds like, what is she talking about? But again, we're the adults.
Yeah.
You know, the diseases of the heart don't start from anywhere. They start from real places, real desires that we have as human beings. I want to look nice. I want to see myself. I want to get right.
All of that.
We know that those go that can lead to really unhealthy places.
Yep.
What do you need 20 pictures of yourself for? Right? If you take 30, delete 10 of them. Never have more than 20. Maybe you find you don't even need that many. I'm just saying, have that conversation and don't just say, well, Bismillah, all right, be responsible. What does that mean? Define.
Yep.
Now you're advising them. Let's talk about what that should look like. What do you think is healthy for you? What have you been raised with? What do you think I would say?
And it's interesting, they have answers. They'll surprise you with their
and they're much more reasonable. When I say, well, what should be your consequence? Or what should be the parameters for this goal that you're working towards?
Yep.
Sometimes they'll say things, I'm like, dang, I wouldn't have said that, okay. You know? But we're hearing how they think. We're learning, and they're learning that we trust them, and we're learning how to trust them. Okay, give a little more, you know, step back a little more. Oh, they need me here, you know. And just enjoy it. I think that would be the last thing I would just say. I mean, children are amazing. And the Prophet ﷺ, you know, he reminds us that those who don't have respect for their elders and kindness for those that are younger than them, they're not from me. So remembering that we all were once a child, and even if our childhood was not a happy one, right? We know the potential for childhood to be a time where you can help someone else make happy memories, joyful memories, and you can revisit, you can share that with them. Hold on to that, you know, and just enjoy your children. Raise them in a way where you like being around them. Invite them into the things you like to do. I'm for real, right? Because this pandemic has brought a lot of feelings of, I don't even like you, you know?
All my laughing has been because it's like hidden, you know, all these things. Like one of my sisters in love, she jokingly said, you know, Dola, she be let her kids, but she like her kids. Shouldn't we?
It does show, you know.
We should like our children. And I will even talk to them in those terms, like, you shouldn't do things for me to like you, because you have to like yourself and, you know, your relationship with the one that you're praying to, blah, blah, blah. Right. But it is very nice for us to like each other. Yeah, we love each other.
And that doesn't mean it's always going to be that way. There are times where I don't like you. I don't like what's happening right now. I love you, but
and we talked about
on that one.
We have talked about that, and I know, like, my oldest, she's the one that we've had the most intense kind of conversations about these types of things. And she at one point said, you know, there have been times that I didn't like you. And I was like, well, how could I expect there to not have been those times? There have been times when I didn't like me.
Right. You know? Yeah, for real.
I knew I shouldn't have done. I didn't like it. You know, I'm not being the person that I know I should be. I didn't like that. I would be foolish to expect you to like me all the time. That's not realistic. I don't like your father all the time. He doesn't like me all the time. But what do we do all the time? We respect each other. We communicate in a certain kind of way. We show love to each other. We're kind as much as possible. Certain things happen whether we like each other or not. So the life is just the icing.
Values.
Yeah.
Values, and I would encourage parents, write them down.
Right. Like is nice, but it doesn't happen often. I'm sorry, it doesn't happen all the time. And I don't expect it all the time. I expect you, if you're not upset about anything I do as your mom, I am not doing this right.
Right. Yes.
I'm not doing this right. Because how could you possibly want every single boundary and rule? And how could you want that? Like, you're too young to even see all of this being necessary. So no, my goal is not for you to like it. It's not for you to understand. Some stuff you just got to do. Some stuff we're going to talk about. And I like that, having them explain what they watch, because I was exactly like you with the whole Disney, Nick. Like, it's what I call for my children a non-negotiable. Some things you can talk me through and convince me of. Some things non-negotiable. Disney Channel was a non-negotiable. I was like, absolutely not. Are you going to sit and just absorb all of that foolishness and disrespect? You can't convince me that you can watch this. Now that they're older, they're like, okay, can we watch this? Can I watch WandaVision? Can I watch Selena? Can I watch And I'm like, I don't really know these shows, but
right.
Convince me. But I
will say she just won for the second year in a row the Young Litigators High School competition here in Atlanta. So her persuasive skills are on point.
That's my girl. That's a little homie. I like her. And she always says to me, like, Ziza is just like me, right? So I can give you some tips.
She can.
I give you some tips on what's coming because she's exactly like me. Like she's, I don't know, within the first day or two of them spending time together, it was really interesting. But I think that was kind of everything. You was ready, sister.
Well, I live with 5 on a date. No, I'm just kidding. I'm saying that.
You was ready. I was looking at the comments. We only have a couple, and there's not really any question in there. So I guess we're good to go. I guess you explained things so well. They ain't had no questions.
Keep praying. That's but just keep praying. Pray on it.
But no, seriously, thank you so much. I know I was a little last minute in my request, but thank you for being able to join us. And as always, you're amazing. I appreciate you. And
likewise.
That's it for us for today. Everybody that's watching now, we're gonna watch later. Thanks for joining us, and share and join us on Monday. We're gonna be in the final stretch, and we're going to be talking about community. And Monday we'll be discussing community with some brothers, and then Friday with some sisters. So the community lineup is looking pretty good. Inshallah, we'll be able to close out strong. So that is it for me. It's it for you. You have any final thing, or are you good?
No, I think I'm good. Alhamdulillah. Just love on them and keep praying on it, and it's gonna be okay.
All right, well then I guess we can sign off. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. You guys have a good morning, evening, or night, depending on where you are.
Right.
Assalamu alaikum.